everyone, this is Robo Oso, and I'm here with Silver.
Hello, everyone.
Now, you may have noticed our channel's banner says Games, Comedy, and Discussion.
And so what we're going to try to do is have an introduction to our discussions. What we like to do is whenever we see a new anime or read a new manga or play a different game, we really like to discuss whatever we just saw with each other. We try to go in depth and talk about what resonated with us. We talk about how the game or anime made us feel. Did we enjoy it? But we also try to consider the perspectives of the writers and the directors. We think about whether the game or anime successfully achieved what it seems, at least to us, that the creators were trying to achieve. And we hope you'll enjoy these discussions, and we encourage you to share your thoughts with us.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're going to do with this video, where we're going to be talking about our favorite games, anime, manga, movies to give you a sense of our general interests and what types of stories and characters resonate the most with us.
Yeah.
So first we're going to be talking about some of our favorite video games. And my favorite video game of all time, I think, is Final Fantasy X. It was one of those games that I had impulsively bought at a store. I had no idea what it was going to be about. And immediately the thing that comes to mind with it are the gorgeous visuals and the fact that it was one of those games that not only introduced me to JRPGs or Japanese role-playing games in general, but giving a video game a cinematic feel, something similar to a movie I had never experienced before. And the brilliant score by Nobuo Uematsu really struck home with me as well. So it's definitely one of the top gaming experiences that I can think of.
Yeah, no, I agree. It had a lot of really striking visuals. Very beginning of the game, especially every time that, if you're familiar with it, Sin, the big kind of like whale thing, big whale monster to oversimplify, whenever it appears and there's a huge contrast, you generally see it from kind of the ground level, and it has a very kind of monster movie kaiju sort of feel to it, and they really do a good job with scale and with fear. But then there's a very, if you get caught up in it, I know if you're somebody who doesn't like JRPGs, that sort of game can feel hokey or cliche, and and like anything, some of the reasons things have become cliche are because it was well done. But if you get caught up in it, if you allow yourself to get caught up in it, there's a lot of emotion to the different characters, and it's pretty well done for the most part. With the exception of the romance between the two leads is a little whatever, but it's good at times. But it's a very interesting experience. The world is definitely interesting, and very colorful, diverse. Just had a really good feel to it. It had it felt like a completed like a complete whole. And the reason I'm saying that, was kind of an odd way to describe it, is so many of the Final Fantasies feel really uneven. They have an interesting premise, but then they're awful, or there's something where they fall apart. Whereas 10 felt pretty good kind of the whole way through, which is definitely not the case for many JRPGs.
Very cohesive kind of narrative overall, and how the characters do what they do.
And it didn't always work perfectly, but overall I did think it was very successful.
Yeah, and definitely the designs of the characters too, I thought were just really well done. And to this day, there's just a lot of moments of that game that really stick out with me. I still reference scenes here and there sometimes using Titus's voice. And I even do the praise be to Yevon bow sometimes to my friends, just because it was just so notable. I just always think about it all the time. The next game I would... Oh, yeah?
Oh, the only point that I was going to make about Titus is just that I always thought it was like he was dressed like a sexy fisherman. Like it was Halloween and he was doing the equivalent of like, he wasn't like the slutty nurse, he was like the slutty, JRPG fisherman.
Just, and I know...
Because he's wearing like a half shirt or something.
And I know people bring up the joke about how he looks like Meg Ryan, or the dub where he's laughing or whatever, but I always say, like I care.
Yep.
And I call him Titus, not Titus. It's just how it is.
Yeah, Titus is... No.
The next game I have to bring up is Harvest Moon, specifically Harvest Moon 64. It's just one of those games that, again, I purchased when I was really young, and it really stuck out to me, not just because of how appropriate the music is when you enter different areas of the maps, or how cute the girls were that you were trying to like date. But it was also just the really cute visuals, and it was one of the first more kind of casual, relaxing type of games that I had ever played. And so it really stuck out to me as a kid, being like, oh, I can actually play a game that's, there's no huge overarching conflict, there's no like evil villain. You're just playing this sort of like cute farming simulation game, and it's just a nice, relaxing experience. And then the next game I'd have to bring up is Resident Evil 4, specifically for the PS2. This is one of those games that, yes, there's some annoying elements to it, specifically in most kind of Japanese horror games, how you can't really back away while you're shooting. That is annoying.
Well, you can't move at
But
all. You can't move and shoot because, like, that's just...
yeah,
They forgot to train Leon how to do that. He missed that day. He was sick during that day of elite
but
soldier training.
But that game was just, again, I mean, I love Japanese horror games, and especially that game, because it was just a blast to play. I just had a lot of fun going through the different areas. I loved specifically that atmospheric part where you go into this area and there's all these like black birds in the center of this like plaza, and you start hearing the lake monster roars. And at the time, I had no idea what that was, and I did kind of hesitate before I went to that new area because I'm like, oh my God, what the hell is that? What am I going to do? And yeah, there are a lot of over the top stuff in it, like that little boy villain person. I
The
forget the
little
name of.
Napoleon guy.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
there is some silly stuff to it, but I think that's
it
just
was
part of the
very
charm.
it was self-aware in the best way possible. It didn't become a self-parody, even though it was obviously very ridiculous. But
Yeah.
it was an action horror title that was fun. It wasn't trying to be scary. It was scary at times, a little bit tense, but it wasn't trying to be too scary. It wasn't trying to be a deep drama. It wasn't all. It was all over the place, but in a great way.
Yeah, I think the scariest thing about it was when I told my friend who didn't know about it at the time, I was like, oh, you can defeat the lake monster if you shoot into the water, because I had heard that
Yeah,
if you do that, the monster like comes up and eats you right away. And I
yeah,
had never seen it happen. And I heard my friend's reaction on the phone. Amazing. It was just so much fun.
yeah. So my games are well. We're starting off with a weird one. But this is so again. These are not the games I think are the best games. These
Yeah.
are some of my favorites. So first off, we have Streets of Simcity. What I loved about it was, I mean, I played the hell out of it. I put in probably hundreds of hours into this game, which if you played it might sound absurd to you, but I don't know. It was it was a very unique experience for me because if you're not familiar, it was a first person or third person driving racing game. The game was set up like it was a 70s like the screen interface was like a 70s television, and everything was like a parody of 70s television shows. And the missions, you were always just in a car. You couldn't get out of the car. This is the mid '90s. The fact that you were driving a car that was in 3D was the impressive point of the game. And there were only, what were there, like 6 cars? There was like a Volkswagen. There was like a sports coupe. There was like a Ford GT 40, and there was like a big truck. And the point of the game, depending on the different channels, you would pick different channels, and some of them you were just delivering packages. You were just driving around in cars delivering packages to different places as either police or random evil black looking cars attacked you. And other missions were, one was you were playing a police officer who was fighting crime. It was a Dirty Harry parody. There was another one where you were an old woman and you end up delivering packages, and there are clues. You're investigating some sort of strange happenings, and it turns out aliens are invading, and you and your dog have to like fight to save the world. It's very ridiculous. And other ones were just racing. But the really cool thing was it was very absurd. It was very kind of surreal because your car, not only were you driving around, but your car could fly. There was like an airfoil. You could jump your car in the air with like a spring thing, so you could kind of fly around the town. You had machine guns. You had rocket launchers, oil, smoke screens that you could put up to to try to elude the AI and try to win races and stuff, but and also kill people. There were deathmatch modes and different stuff like that where you're just fighting the AI. But one of my favorite things was the fact that you could make your own maps. So if you created a map in SimCity 2000, you could load it into Streets of SimCity and drive around it. And it just had these kind of basic modes where you would either drive around it with no AI, drive around it delivering packages with some enemies, or tons of enemies and tons of packages. And the packages were all usually funny things. And there was a radio station a little bit similar to the ones that were in the later Grand Theft Auto games, where there was different music. There was kind of like, there was jazz, there was country, there was rock, there was electronic stuff. But there were also really funny satirical ads. So there were ads making fun of, a lot of them were making fun of sort of local TV ads, where they had like the one guy who's like the shady crazy guy who's selling everything for, like 80% off, but he's selling everything out of the back of a van, and you have to like try to find him. And so each ad would be him describing some absurd way to try to locate him. And then there was other stuff that was all about it was also kind of consistent with the Sim universe. You played the other Sim games, they were referencing other stuff and trying to like have fake ads overselling their games. And it was very silly and ridiculous, and it was very open in terms of how you could just drive everywhere and explore, and you could even explore your own maps that you made, which is really cool. And then the next one of my favorite games was Chrono Cross. Mm-hmm. And again, another JRPG. This is the sequel to Chrono Trigger. And one of the things I really loved about it was a very, I don't know, there was a lot of emotion in the game in terms of the characters' sort of relationships to it. And it was very trippy, because generally the premise is that the main character is this young boy, or young, he's a teenager, he's like, you're 13 or whatever, you're 13, 14, 15, whatever, JRPG. And the boy's father died. I think your mother isn't around either. I think they don't really describe you as an orphan, but whatever. So you're the main character, and you nearly died in some sort of accident as a kid, but then you grew up and you were okay. And you end up one day when you're, a teen, you get pulled through this portal to another world, and the world is a parallel universe in which you died when you were a kid. And so you get pulled into this world where you don't exist, and you get to see the sense isn't that that's literally the only thing that's different about it. Other things are different too, but it kind of, you get to see how things are very different, and they're parallel characters. You get to eventually go back and forth between the worlds, interacting with different stuff. You get to see different choices you make, how they change things. The plot's very interesting. There are like 40-something playable characters, some of which are really core to the plot. They have like very involved backstories. Some of which are just like, this guy's a robot assassin who's awesome. Like, you can use him to murder people, or like a baby dragon, or a space alien. There's actually kind of like a really cool space alien character. So there is just lots of very ridiculous stuff in it, but it really kept the high level of art, music. It had a very kind of haunting but simultaneously lovely tone to it. Just a lot of tragedy, but in a way that's interesting. A very, I don't know, but it was very compelling to me, and I really liked the art style. And it was a PlayStation game, so if you go back and look at it, you're gonna be like, that looks awful. But back when it was new, it looked great, or at least pretty good. It was definitely great for the PlayStation. It was one of the last things that ever came out for the original PlayStation, but it was definitely a fantastic game. And then last on the list for me would be Half-Life. And Half-Life, incredibly popular game, incredibly influential, so I don't need to talk about it too much. If you're watching this, you probably know what Half-Life is. But the things that I particularly loved about it were how thrilling and unpredictable it was. And it seemed to pull from a lot of things that were very exciting. It pulled, you're crawling through the vents a little bit like Die Hard. You're fighting the military, and it's like kind of a conspiracy thing. You're fighting ninjas, you're fighting aliens, and all different types of aliens, giant aliens, small aliens, the face huggers, which are like, a reference to Alien, and then there are the more soldier characters, and there's all this different stuff, and there's, the G-Man, and so it's just a weird mixture of things, but it was very compelling. I really loved how focused it was. how focused the gameplay and the experience was. It never shifted from Freeman's perspective. It never did a cutscene or anything. Everything was always you, the player, having this thing happen to you. And it was very immersive. To this day, it's one of the most immersive games I've ever played. And that part of that is because of the fact that perspective never shifted. But bigger than that was the fact that they were really thoughtful about the experience and about how everything was going to be. Because there are a lot of scripted events that happen. But when you're playing it for the very first time, it's incredibly tense. It feels very claustrophobic, but in a great way, not in a way that's uncomfortable, in a way that's very exciting and compelling. And you never knew what was going to happen. It was very unpredictable and just a really great experience. Incredibly memorable.
Yeah, especially and Half-Life 2 as well.
Well, yeah, Half-Life 2 is also fantastic, but for me, kind of the original Half-Life will always be. It'll have a special nostalgic place in my heart. Like I remember elements of my life. Like I have memories of certain days in my life where I happen to be playing that. So, and that's part of it's due to the age that I was when I was playing it. But still, it was just a really great gaming experience. Hi friends, this is Silver interrupting my own conversation because Oso and I decided to cut this video into 2 parts. The reasons that we ended up talking for well over an hour when we sat down to record this. So as you can tell, we really do like talking about our interests. But just to clarify, that was only the games discussion. The next video, we will go over our favorite anime, our favorite manga, our favorite movies, so stay tuned for part 2. And we also hope that you liked watching me play Distance. That was the game playing, racing game for the first time. And it's really fun. I recommend it if that's the sort of thing that interests you. So like the video if you liked the video, and subscribe if you'd like to see more from us. We really hope that you'll become part of our community, and we'll see you next time.